The phantom phone calls. Jenna Madison thought her new phone was a blessing, a sleek gift from her parents for her 16th birthday, meant to replace the clunky old model she had been using. But as the dim light of evening settled over her small town of Meadowbrook, the device turned into a sinister conduit of dread. It began one quiet night, the air thick with the impending storm. Jenna was studying in her room, textbooks sprawled across the desk, when her phone buzzed. Thinking it was a message from her best friend Elise, Jenna reached for it without a second thought. But the caller ID showed her own number, mirrored back at her in the screen's glow. Confused and curious, Jenna answered. "Hello?" The voice that came through was a distorted whisper, barely audible over the static. "See the future, Jenna. Listen." Before she could respond, the call ended, leaving Jenna staring at her phone in bewilderment. She tried to dismiss it as a prank, maybe something Elise had cooked up. But when she called her friend, Elise's confusion sounded genuine, and no amount of technical explanation could account for how her own number had called her. Over the next few days, the calls continued. Each one came at exactly 8:03 p.m., each time displaying her own number, and each call lasted exactly 13 seconds. With every call, the voice delivered fragments of chilling prophecies, snippets of conversations, screams, sounds of chaos, and always ending with the same whisper, "Change it, Jenna." Frightened and desperate to understand, Jenna began documenting the messages, trying to piece together the puzzle. Each snippet seemed to hint at events involving her friends and family, disasters, accidents, and arguments that hadn't happened yet. The sense of dread deepened in Jenna's core, gnawing at her peace. Determined to break this cycle of foreboding calls, Jenna started researching. She dug into old newspapers at the library, spoke to tech experts, and even consulted a local psychic known for her expertise in the supernatural. All her efforts, however, led her back to square one, with nothing but her chilling notes as clues. One evening, as Jenna was piecing together another snippet of the eerie puzzle, her phone rang again. It was 8:03 p.m. Bracing herself, Jenna answered, expecting the usual ominous whisper. Instead, a clear, urgent voice spoke. "Jenna, get out now! The fire starts in the kitchen!" Without a second thought, Jenna dropped her phone and raced downstairs. As she reached the first floor, she smelled smoke. Her heart pounding, she ran into the kitchen, where she saw a small fire had started near the stove. Her quick action to extinguish it probably saved their house and her family from disaster. The calls were not just pranks, they were real warnings. Shaken by the realization, Jenna knew she had to find out why this was happening. She thought about the psychic, Miss Lorraine, who had mentioned something about a temporal echo during their brief meeting. Jenna hadn't paid much attention then, focusing instead on the technological aspects. Now, with the tangible proof of the fire that had nearly consumed her home, she knew she needed to explore these supernatural angles more deeply. Jenna revisited Miss Lorraine, who listened intently to her story. The old woman's eyes widened with a mix of fascination and fear as Jenna recounted the events. "Child, you've tapped into something profound and dangerous," Miss Lorraine said gravely. "These calls, they're not just simple messages. They are a breach into the fabric of time, a glimpse into potential futures that are calling out to you for change." "But why me?" Jenna asked, feeling the weight of responsibility tightening around her. "It could be a random twist of fate, or you might have a unique connection to the temporal streams that we don't yet understand," Miss Lorraine explained. "What's important now is to use this knowledge to prevent these darker futures from unfolding." Armed with a new understanding, but burdened with the enormity of her task, Jenna left Miss Lorraine's dimly lit shop. As she stepped out into the cool night air, her phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, Jenna saw her own number again. Her heart skipped, but this time, armed with insight and a fierce determination, she answered the call. "Tell me what I need to know," Jenna said into the phone, ready to face whatever came next. Armed with determination but swirling with questions, Jenna spent the following days preparing. She fortified herself with knowledge from both the scientific and the occult, trying to straddle the line between two vastly different explanations for her unnerving situation. Each evening, as 8:03 p.m. approached, Jenna would ready herself by the phone, a notebook at her side, and a resolve that was hard as steel. The calls continued, each delivering dire predictions or urgent warnings, a snippet of an accident at the school prom, a forewarning of a heated argument between her parents that could lead to bitter resentment, a terrifying hint of her friend Elise caught in a situation far over her head. Jenna, fueled by the need to protect her loved ones, intervened wherever she could. It was exhausting, playing this temporal chess game with fate, moving pieces around in hopes of staving off checkmate. One night, Jenna received a call that froze her blood, a warning of a darker nature than all before. The voice, now chillingly familiar, spoke of a night where Meadowbrook would be swallowed by shadows, where despair would seep through the streets like fog. "They're coming, Jenna! The barriers weaken! You must be ready!" Panicked but propelled by necessity, Jenna sought Miss Lorraine's counsel once more. The old psychic listened, her face growing paler with each word. "This is beyond what I feared," Miss Lorraine whispered after a long pause. "There are forces at play here, ancient and hungry. The calls you receive, they are not just from your future, but from a potential reality clawing its way into existence. You have the power to stop this, Jenna, but it will require more than just changing events. You must close the breach." "How?" Jenna's voice was barely a whisper, drowned out by the enormity of her task. "Find the source of your connection to these calls. There's a focal point, something tying you to these echoes," Miss Lorraine explained, handing Jenna an old, ornately carved compass. "This will guide you to it. Trust your instincts as much as the needle." The compass led Jenna to an abandoned part of Meadowbrook, an old communications tower that had been decommissioned years ago. As she approached, the air thickened, and her phone buzzed incessantly without calls coming through. It was as if the very atmosphere was alive with whispered threats and promises of despair. Climbing the rusted ladder to the top of the tower, Jenna found an old, weather-beaten phone booth, incongruously intact. As she stepped inside, the door shut behind her and her phone rang. It was her number calling. This time, however, she knew what she needed to do. Jenna answered the phone, her voice steady. "This ends now." As she spoke, she placed the compass on the phone's receiver, watching as the needle spun wildly before pointing straight at the phone itself. With a deep breath, Jenna ripped the phone from the booth, wires tearing with a scream that echoed the wail of the wind outside. The call stopped, the screen of her phone went black, and the oppressive weight in the air lifted, replaced by the quiet peace of an ordinary night. In the days that followed, Jenna's life returned to a semblance of normalcy. The calls had stopped, and with each passing day, the memories of those frantic nights began to feel like a distant dream. Yet she knew better than to think it was over forever. She had touched something vast and dark, something that existed beyond the margins of her understanding. As she walked up through Meadowbrook, the town now untouched by the shadow of impending doom, Jenna felt a mix of relief and vigilance. Her phone, once a harbinger of doom, now lay silent. But in her heart, she knew that she had merely closed a door, not locked it. The world was full of doors, and someday, another might open. But for now, Jenna Madison walked on, her eyes open and her will unbroken, ready for whatever might come next. She had faced the abyss and had not blinked. Whatever future calls might come, she would be ready to face them, to fight them, to change them.
If you enjoyed this chilling story, let us know by smashing that like button. We upload new spine-tingling tales every week, so subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback shapes our future uploads. Stay spooky, and we'll see you in the next video.